How do you use your mental and emotional energy? Is it in a way that serves you, or in a way that's bringing you down? You're listening to Pure Light, where we explore how you can believe in yourself and be happy with who you are. My name is Ailey. I'm a coach, writer, and yoga and meditation teacher. This is episode 131. The last couple of episodes, I've been talking about how to break the pattern of beating yourself up. Beating yourself up is just a mental habit, and it's one way of using your energy, your creative energy, that ends up consuming a lot of mental and emotional energy. Because thoughts are a form of energy, emotions are another form of energy, and there are definitely connections between those two kinds of energy, meaning they both influence each other and feed off of each other. And there are other ways that you can use that creative energy. So in a way, this episode is also about how to break the pattern of beating yourself up by being proactive at a whole other level. So my mind used to be insanely busy. I've talked about it many times before. And it was at the same time that I also had a belief that I was not a creative person. And I don't think that's a coincidence. My mind was busy doing things like overthinking and analyzing and worrying and beating myself up and getting into negative spirals. So a significant amount of my mental and emotional energy was tied up in that. And when I went to Australia in 2010 on a leave of absence from my job to reevaluate my life, I wanted to blog about that experience. I wanted to capture it and write about it and take photos of it. And so that was the first time I had really done anything creative in probably like a decade, where I actually dedicated time to it and actually put something out into the world, which I think is important too. So my goal was to post on that blog 4 times a month during that trip. And I did that. And there was something magical about that experience for me. It was almost soothing in a way emotionally. Because I remember when I was sitting in like a cafe writing a blog post, I felt a new level of peace or almost a sense of relief. And some of that for sure was from the fact that I was traveling and not working. But some of it was because I was doing something creative. It was like fuel for my soul because it forced me to break the pattern of overthinking. Because when you do anything creative, you have to make decisions constantly, because you're starting from a blank slate and then bringing something into being. And overthinking is the opposite of that. It's constantly avoiding and postponing decisions. So that was kind of my reinitiation back into the world of creativity. And it opened the door to that world and ultimately led to me letting go of the belief that I'm not a creative person a couple of years later. And although I didn't think of creativity as a practice at that point in time, I do now. And by practice, I mean it's something that you do on a consistent basis for your well-being and for your evolution, like meditation or something else like that. I've had multiple creativity practices since then. The first one involved me posting a photo a day on Instagram. The next one was doing a video every day for 40 days on YouTube. And then when I started this podcast, I also looked at it as a practice in creativity. It was a practice in showing up and putting something I made out into the world every week, and specifically something that was in alignment with the kind of material that would eventually be in my book. So over the last decade, I've spent more and more time doing creative things. And at the same time, my mood has become more and more positive and resilient. So more in that space of joy and wonder and gratitude for life, and more resilient when, things come up that are outside of that space. And at the same time, also, my mind has become less and less likely to get caught up in thinking patterns that bring me down. And I'll also say it's over the last decade that I've spent more time meditating. So practicing creativity isn't the only thing that's contributed to the shift, but it's been a critical component of it. Because I've been using my mental and emotional energy to create these things. And I see it almost like an investment. Because the more that I use my creative energy for creative work, the less space my mind has to go into worry or into negative thinking patterns. Things like, what are people going to think about the book? So to a certain extent, you get to decide how you want to use your creative energy, your mental and emotional energy. And you can be intentional about it. The more proactive you are about channeling it into creativity, the less energy you'll have for other things like worrying or beating yourself up. And that's not to say that those things will never happen again, but you'll have less energy for them. And if you make creativity a practice, so something that you do on a consistent basis for the purpose of channeling that energy, it'll use that creative energy in a positive way. And that's really key because the energy doesn't just go away if you don't use it. It has the potential to transform from something creative into something destructive, like worrying or beating yourself up or negative thinking spirals. Brené Brown has said, unused creativity is not benign. It metastasizes. It turns into grief, rage, judgment, sorrow, shame. So when you're more focused on what you can create, there's less space in your mind to find ways to destroy things like your sense of self. If you don't give your mind something to focus on or something to do, it'll find something to do, something that may be detrimental to you. And if you're listening to this thinking, but I'm not a creative person, I have 2 suggestions for you. So go back and listen to episode 5 of this podcast. It's titled, I Can't Do That. I'm Not That Kind of Person. And that's where I talk about how I addressed my limiting belief that I was not creative and what I did specifically to get past that. And then the other thing that you can do is let go of the assumption that creativity equals art, or that it's some specific expression of creativity that you need to do. Because there are lots of ways to be creative. It could be through some kind of art. It could also be through cooking or organizing or even coding or writing macros in Excel. Like, it doesn't have to look the way you think it has to look. And I'm going to list some synonyms for the word create just to see if this sparks any ideas for you for how you can use that creative energy. Build, construct, design, initiate, generate, invent, make, organize, plan, produce. So basically anything that involves you taking an idea you have and bringing it into being in some capacity, which is a really powerful thing to see yourself doing that. Creativity can be used to help you stay sane by using your energy in a constructive way. It also has the power to help you realize your true self. I'm going to talk more about that in the next episode, so stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, may you be guided by your light.